Okay, I admit, I was wrong. I was wrong like so many of us that thought that Kawasaki had pulled the plug on the mighty KLR. Of course it didn't. 2022, much updated with a few big changes and many small changes that really make this a much better adventure touring motorcycle overall. I applaud Kawasaki for putting it all together in a very attractive package as well. You can only appreciate the small changes if you really know the second generation well. I happen to know it well. I lived off the bike and I really appreciate it for what it was able to do. Now, this is a much better version. It's not simply a pig with lipstick, as many would like to say. And it's not exactly a new bike overall because it shares so many features of the KLR. It is a KLR, but it's really much better. Now, out of all the reviews on YouTube, and I've seen them all, none until this one right now mentions a key factor that you should consider if you're thinking of buying this motorcycle and touring internationally with it. This factor is so important that I cannot believe adventure touring riders have not mentioned it in their reviews. You'll hear it here first. Stay tuned. Let's get into the details. I'll tell you what I think of this motorcycle, all the little details that were fixed, that were made better. It really truly is an awesome machine now and worth the consideration of any serious adventure tourer. Let's get into it. Zdravo I dobrodošli, bon dia, bem-vindos, servus, willkommen, buenos dias, bienvenidos, greetings riders, and welcome to beautiful, who knows where, canyons. Canyons of California. Love it. It's beautiful here, but the temperature's dropping quick. It'll be below zero today, so I'm trying to get this out and get to the camp, put on a fire, and enjoy the beautiful full moon lit sky that we're gonna have tonight. But I wanted to introduce you to the 2022 KLR650. Nick here with Pegasus Motorcycle Tours and Consulting. Thank you for being here. I appreciate your time, appreciate your attention. I have had the sincere pleasure to get to know the Generation 3 KLR650. Kawasaki took note of my very comprehensive review of the second gen, a bike that I was very familiar with, having toured internationally with it. I still own it in Europe and it never lets me down. They invited me to the press launch of this motorcycle a few months ago in New Mexico. I respectfully declined because I wanted this motorcycle on my own terms. I wanted it for a longer period of time. I wanted to get it dirty. I wanted to choose my own rides and I wanted to load it down, camp with it, get to know it, really see all the little differences that make this a much improved motorcycle that you can only get to know from living off of it. So I've had the chance to do that, and here is my impression of the Generation 3 KLR. So this review is going to be a full breakdown of all the improvements, how it differs from the second gen, very importantly, and I will talk about one key factor that I haven't heard anybody talk about yet. Nobody on YouTube, anything that I've read so far about the bike, I just haven't heard about anybody talk about this very important factor, and really, it could be a deal breaker for some of you who are considering this motorcycle for international adventure touring. This review is going to be useful if you go and watch my second gen review, because I'm going to be talking about the differences between these two motorcycles, the second gen and the third gen KLR. Why the third gen has been so much improved with all the little improvements and the major ones. So if you are really considering KLR and you have no experience with it, you should definitely take a look at my second gen review, because it's 40 minutes long. It's full of details that I've learned over, I don't know how many, 15 years of owning multiple KLRs, touring internationally with it. I still own it. I have one in Europe that I keep whenever I'm there, and it's always served me well. You know, can be sitting for years at a time. I just changed the fluids and the battery started right up, and it's never let me down. Come on, my little KLR. Beautiful. 3 years, and before this it sat for 5 years, or for 4 years. Amazing motorcycle. Take a look at that review first, because I'm going to be just basically building on that review for this motorcycle. As you know, on this channel, I built the channel on the basis of owning every motorcycle that I review. Why do I do that? I do that so that you know you're getting an honest review based on my personal experience and not first-hand impressions from a bike that I've had just for a few hours or something that's borrowed that I have to be nice with. This is different, let's admit. This bike was given to me by Kawasaki, albeit fairly liberally, no strings attached. They didn't ask for anything. They just kind of gave me the keys. I signed on the dotted line and I was off on my merry way. So I appreciate that. But they did give it to me for a month. They didn't tell me anything regarding where I need to go, what I need to do, etc. They just said bring it back in one piece. I actually did lay it down on that side, so we'll see how that goes. But so I did have it on my own terms. We went shooting, we went camping, we went mudding. You get to know the motorcycle by living off of it, by really touring on it. If this is how you intend on using the KLR, you're in the right place, because that's how I gotten to know this motorcycle. So 2022 version 3 of the mighty KLR, and there are some incredibly important improvements that make this a much better adventure touring motorcycle. General motorcycle to have in the garage in any case, you know, they're bulletproof. They're very, very good motorcycles to have for the long term because they last forever. Stuff is simple for them. There's a lot of aftermarket parts, but for the Gen 3, there's some crucial small improvements that really make it a much improved version of the KLR. Of course, the two big improvements, well, let's say three, are EFI, ABS, and the bodywork for the new motorcycle that really make it more modern, more usable, safer, and more predictable in higher altitude riding, in dirty environments where the carb would cause some issues. From my second generation review, you realize how you remember how much I really dislike carb work and doing that on the side of the road. It's just not something I want to be doing. So this was a really welcome news for me. And I actually like the looks of the KLR. We're not going to talk about the looks because they're so subjective, but I think it's definitely modern, attractive. It's easy on the eyes, much easier than the other one. And I think they did a good job. There comes three versions of this motorcycle. The basic starts in the US MSRP around $6,700. Then you can add ABS for about $300. And then you get the Traveler. The Traveler comes with the top case, some other amenities as well. And ultimately you have the Adventure. The Adventure comes with everything the Traveler does, including two power outlets, a USB power outlet and a 12 volt. It has the engine guards. It has the light bar with the auxiliary lights. It has ABS, of course, and it has the side cases by Kawasaki, 21 liters. Not a huge fan of those, but I'll talk about that in detail. So I asked for Kawasaki to give me the 650 Adventure version because I wanted to test the luggage and everything. The engine looks the same, but there have been some smaller improvements. So let's go through all the little details and see how this bike truly differs from the second generation. Of course, if you're here, you probably know already the biggest upgrade is the EFI. If you've seen my second gen review, you know how much I really hated the carbs when you're touring and you're living on the bike and it's hot and you get some bad gas and you don't have a place to work on the carb to clean it. So even basic maintenance, just cleaning the carb, maintaining it from so many miles of touring, it's hard to do because you're touring and you don't have a place to do it, and you have to do it on the side of the road somewhere where you'd rather just be mingling with the locals instead or be on your merry way. No more of that. EFI for the third generation Kawasaki, very, very welcome news. Now, how does it perform? What I've noticed is that it's definitely smoother. What's gone is the worry, is it going to start in the morning? You know, are you going to be able to start the bike because you know that it was due for a cleaning a few weeks ago and you just haven't had an opportunity to do that, and it's cold and you don't know in the morning, is it going to start? So you have to plan on parking up a hill so that you could roll down, try to start it that way. All of that's gone. EFI, super proven by now. My God, we've had it for over 100 years. The argument of EFI not being repairable on the side of the road, ask yourself, have you ever met somebody who had a problem with their EFI on the side of the road and couldn't repair it? I haven't in all my years of touring, so in all my 50 motorcycles that I've owned. So yeah, it's not an issue, folks. It's proven technology. It works. It's fairly simple. It's dependable in altitude and those kinds of changes that would affect a carb bike. So this is great. I like the fact that it's predictable in the morning, no matter how cold it is. And these mornings, it gets down to below zero. I've been camping and it's cold. I'm really a great fan of this major change and applaud Kawasaki for it. So the EFI adds about 26 or so pounds extra. So before second gen, 430 pounds or so. This one, the basic version without the ABS, around 456. The adventure model is around 480. It's getting up there just because of all the luggage and the extras. Obviously the engine protection, etc. All of that adds a lot of weight. It comes in 3 different colors. The orange, lava orange, that's pearl as well. Then you get the pearl khaki sand, and then you get this color, which is very, very important. And this is what I wanted to talk to you about towards the end of the video, because it's an extremely important factor to consider when you're adventure touring. Let's talk about that in due time. But for now, let's keep talking about what's new. Obviously, the whole look of the motorcycle is new. You get a lot of new plastics. I like this middle part here that's replaceable in case you scratch it. I actually did lay this motorcycle down. It's big, it's top heavy, 6.1 gallon tank up top. Apparently a little more usable because the fuel pump now, you are able to use the last drops of that fuel. So the motorcycle is still very top heavy as the versions before it. And if you lose footing, I'm 5'8", I'm nowhere near flat-footed on this bike. I'm on my tippy toes all the time. And I ended laying it down. There were some massive rains and really unsure ground. But of course, it was all done in a scientific manner, you know, professional rider in a closed course, just to give you the lowdown on what happens when you drop it. You know, I don't do accidents. Just kidding, a total accident. But the beautiful thing about it is that only this little plastic, which is replaceable, about $100 per pair on the Kawasaki website, and you can refresh that look. But more on the bags to come. Nothing else was damaged. There's barely any marks even on the engine. I wasn't moving or anything. I just lost my footing, laid it over. So the plastics have not been damaged. I like that a lot. The wind protection is still there. You still get, actually even more so, because with the new version, the 3rd generation provides an adjustable windscreen. It's manually adjustable, and you're not going to be doing a lot of adjusting because you need 2 different Allen keys. I think one is a 4mm, one is larger, and then you need to remove the windscreen and then remove the 4 Allens that hold the bracket, move it up or down. I immediately, upon receiving it from Kawasaki, moved it up, knowing that being so cold, you know, it dips down below zero in eastern San Diego County at night, that I wanted that to be protective enough from the wind, and it does a good job. I don't feel any buffeting. It's not overtly loud, but it's quite a bit higher than the old version. So that was a great improvement. It looks good, it looks modern. If you want even more functionality, you can add a universal spoiler to the windscreen, and you got really, really good wind protection. The windscreen is connected to an accessory bar here. You can add GPS mount, whatever you might want to do. And of course, with the adventure model, you get the light, the fog lights, the auxiliary lighting, and they're good. They actually do a good job lighting up the road. So that was a great improvement on the side of Kawasaki. Again, it looks great. The same front fender, it does vibrate a little bit, but the vibration has been addressed on this motorcycle. So both the handlebars and the foot pegs are now resting on some kind of rubber grommets that allow for less vibration to pass to the rider. And add to that, rubber grommets underneath the seat, which is loads more comfortable than the 2nd gen seat, and you have a bike that feels a lot smoother. So it actually does not feel like a typical big thumper 650 single cylinder engine. It's very smooth. You can do 200 miles before you start to feel uncomfortable on the seat. The seat's been changed. It's been improved regarding the shape, the width, and the materials that are used. So it's a whole different experience. With my other stock KLR, I could never find a way to make that comfortable, even after 50 miles, and I was just in pain. Here, 200-mile days, and then you start to feel it. But up until then, you know, you're taking breaks, and so it's really loads more comfortable than even the 2014 second half version where they did improve the seat. The suspension has been addressed, has been stiffened. Same 41 millimeter springs in the front with about 7.9 inches. I think that's around 200 millimeters of travel. Same difficulty with keeping that super sturdy, so I would definitely benefit from a fork stabilizer. That would be the first thing I would add to this bike. Very similar suspension in the rear as well. That's actually adjustable. The front is not. That one has 7.3, 180 millimeters of suspension travel there, and you can adjust it. 5 levels of adjustments. Now I have it on 3 and it's doing fine. I haven't bottomed out or anything. This looks heavy, but it's not. It's just 2 big sleeping bags, some extra clothes, my cooking gear. It's just super cold, so I just have a lot of, you know, heavy duty down sleeping bag and clothes in there just to keep warm at night. But so yeah, the suspension has been stiffened, and the motorcycle has been elongated by about, I think over an inch or about an inch. The swing arm has been extended, so it gives you a little more planted feel, and I like it. You do feel it. The rear rim, it has been stiffened as well, so the bike is a little more robust in that regard. Other than that, it feels the same. It feels like a KLR. It's that beautiful, familiar feeling of a motorcycle that's not going to leave you stranded. That's really a jack of all trades. It's a motorcycle that can do anything for people who don't like to do it fast. I'm that kind of rider. When I tour by myself, I like to take my time. I like to enjoy the scenery. I don't rush anywhere just because I cannot afford to get hurt. I can't afford to break anything when I'm out alone. I just don't want to spend the time doing that kind of thing. I just want to ride. And this bike is no frills, but it'll get you there. It's wonderful in that regard. It's so utilitarian, and it's in a class of its own for that reason. There's nothing really on the market at the moment that can compare. This motorcycle, the adventure version, looking like this, outkitted with all the OEM accessories, like the lights, like the engine guard, like the luggage, lockable, removable, and the 12-volt and USB chargers and the ABS. This motorcycle retails for, let's say, 50% less than, I don't know, Yamaha Tenere. Yamaha Tenere is a more advanced motorcycle in every respect. You can't compare it to a motorcycle that you can walk out, you know, with around $8,000. So this bike in that regard is in a class of its own. People compare it to the Himalayan. Don't compare it to the Himalayan. It's not in the same class at all. I owned the Himalayan for about 200 miles. I bought it brand new for my daughter's first birthday, thinking it would be a great bike to have in the future for her. We could look at it in the living room. Totally silly. The bike is not ready for any kind of North American adventure touring, European, Australian adventure touring. It has very little power, horrible brakes. It looks like it's poor build quality. This is a different beast entirely. This has been tested and proven since 1987 when the first KLR came out. So definitely less off-road oriented than its predecessors, but not by much, to be honest. It is a little bit heavy, but you don't feel it either. I mean, the 25-pound difference is not something you feel with the KLR, because at the end of the day, the weight is up top with the big 6.1 gallon tank that has been a little bit changed just to accommodate for better use of that gas. Before, you had to kind of move the motorcycle left and right to get that last few drops. Here with the pump, you don't have to do that anymore. The other thing that I noticed about this tank, it does come with this attractive matte paint, but it seems much easier to scuff the clear coat off of it. Even this tank bag has scuffed it quite a lot, and my knees, you know, just touching it. So that's kind of annoying. I mean, I've not had it for that long and not that many miles, but it's still showing signs of abuse, basically. So there is a little rubber or sticker style protection pad in the middle, but these bikes, of course, you're going to be carrying tank bag, and this is a Touratech tank pad with padded backing that's not supposed to scratch it, but it is very much scratched the surface of this tank. So another thing that has been improved, if you can call it that, is that the subframe has been welded. Before, there was a characteristic of some of the KLRs when used in hardcore conditions, let's say with a lot of weight, that the bolts would break. So that would be one of the first things you would replace, is the bolts. You would replace them with harder bolts for the subframe. That's no longer an issue because it's been welded. Some of you might think that's an improvement, some might not, because you can't really repair that as easily as you can replace, you know, just a bolt-on item on the motorcycle. So improved seat, improved engine performance in the sense that what the cam profiles have been changed. It looks the same. It actually feels much the same. I don't feel it any different from my carbureted second gen, other than it's maybe a tad bit smoother and more predictable in that regard. But they also increased middle end torque, let's say, towards the middle. There's a little more usable torque because the exhaust exit has been narrowed down a little bit. And what I like particularly about the exhaust, the muffler has now been completely covered by plastic, so you can't burn anything on it like you could before. You would throw over your jacket and there's a few inches of exposed muffler that's red hot. Well, not red hot, but hot enough to burn your jacket and destroy your clothes or your rock straps. So I like the fact that they address that. Still a lot of heat emanating into this side pannier. So if you're carrying water, let's say you have a 2-liter water bottle or something, that would be a good place to put it to get it hot enough for a shower that night. So I don't mind the heat, but you don't really feel much of the heat from the engine or anything. It's quite nice. So the first thing I did before even taking the keys is I asked about the infamous doohickey issue that the KLR is unfortunately known for in some circles. The doohickey is another name for the balancer chain adjuster lever. This is a little piece of metal on the left side of your engine that's connected to a spring that pulls on the chain, and it adjusts that chain, and it's known to fail. Both the doohickey itself, the metal piece itself, and the spring. So there's aftermarket producers like Eagle Mics who've made a career out of producing these beefed up versions of it. Now, what to say? I'm not one who follows the forums very often. I don't like that style of communication, so I'm not on the forums very much. All I can provide is my own opinion. So I've owned 4 KLRs, 3 of them between 2008 2009, which were known for this problem. This problem is actually more known for the first generation. The Kawasaki response it just has not been enough of a problem, let's say. There hasn't been enough warranty related costs associated to have to redesign the whole thing. So I respect that. If that's the reason, then it makes sense. I mean, KLR has been in production since 1987, and it's probably, I believe, Kawasaki's most sold motorcycle. I mean, when they don't change something for a while, you know it's a good thing. This is a 2009. 2021 is barely any different, looks-wise in any case. You know it sells, so they don't change it because simply there's not enough problems that come to them associated to warranting this particular issue that's more or less known in the community. So there's that. In my experience, in my 4 KLRs right now, I've never had an issue with it. I've opened mine up at 40,000 miles just because I had the extra piece. I had the equipment from Eagle Mic that came with another motorcycle that I bought, another KLR. So I decided, let me go in there and change it, see what it's about. It was fine. The chain was fine. The spring was fine. The thing itself was fine. So that's my personal experience. And again, another issue that's very common, or at least in the forums with the KLR owners, is the oil consumption in the earlier models, 2008, 2009. It is said that the piston rings don't do their job enough, so it burns a lot of oil, etc. I had a little bit of that issue on my first 2008, but that went away when the bike was properly broken in, and I actually never noticed that later on. I would always carry extra oil. It's really not an issue. In my opinion, I've never had that be a problem, oil consumption. Now, I've looked into this topic more, and I've noticed that the part numbers have been changed for the piston rings between the 2022 model and the 2018. The piston itself, part number is the same. I've inquired about to Kawasaki about this, and the response was the parts are actually the same. It's just a different supplier, so they're therefore a different part number. So Eagle Mic has a video. He was interviewed about this thing, and he predicts that it might be the same problem because the piston and the piston rings are the same in the new 2022 KLR. So there that is. Again, all based on personal experience. I've never had an issue with oil burning, oil consumption. Again, the vibration has been addressed because of these rubber mounted foot pegs, but same foot pegs from the previous generation. It's just that the bracket has changed. It would have been nice to have a simple way to just unbolt the rubber mount and have a more grippier surface, because of course with rubber mounted foot pegs there's less of a secure feel. I mean, there's more give, so you don't feel quite as confident, I dare say, as you would with the, you know, perfectly stationary metal foot pegs that grip your boot. A lot of people that I've seen talk about this motorcycle complain there's not enough space for their boots, for the lever, the shifter and the brake. I don't have any problem with that. I can shift just fine with these Icon motorcycle boots. They're quite big, quite heavy, but no, they're totally okay. You can adjust it if needed be as well. I did notice this little Kawasaki sticker here fell off. I hit it with something and it's just glued on, so if that falls off you might have to use some super glue. Super glue, of course, your best friend with the Kawasaki, along with the roll of duct tape, and you can go anywhere. The blinkers have been updated in style. I didn't mind the old ones, to be honest. They were bigger. These don't look any nicer in my opinion. They're just smaller, but yeah, I didn't mind the old ones at all. They vibrate a little bit because they're meant to not break if you lay the bike down on that side. You do get a little bit wider handlebars, and they've been changed a little bit to suit little taller riders. So I'm 5'8", and I could use another inch risers for these to make it a little more comfortable when standing on the foot pegs. But my second gen was around 36 inches of width from here to here, so they're quite wide. They feel nice, but the mirrors have also been widened, which is a good move. Same round mirrors, not the best looking, but super functional, really. They work. You see a lot, and this has been extended so that you can see more of it. You do get these same plastic handguards. They're mostly for brush, to be honest. They'll hit the ground when you hit the ground, so you'll definitely scuff that first, but at least they'll save, potentially, you know, they flex a lot. They'll save the levers, and if you end up hitting a brush while riding, they're not going to activate the brake on purpose. That's the main purpose. If you want more hardcore stuff, you can buy that. That's the beauty of these bikes. They still have a lot of aftermarket parts that apply to this motorcycle from the second gen, and you know, a lot of aftermarket companies are going to jump on this motorcycle because it's going to be around to stay with all these improvements. It comes with a skid plate. The skid plate is plastic and it's likely to break the first time it contacts the ground. So that's considered a pretty common upgrade, pretty necessary upgrade. You have plenty of options. The market is flooded. That's one of the best things about this bike. It's like a Jeep Wrangler. There's just so much that you can add on this bike to make it truly your own. You get a beautiful new digital gauge. The digital gauge, however, although now you do get the gas gauge provided, which is great, so there's no guessing anymore, no counting miles. They did remove the tack, which is an interesting move on the side of Kawasaki. I'm not sure why they did that. The tack was very useful because I ended up changing my front gear so that I can lower the RPMs on the highway with the luggage. It's nice to know where you're standing, and so I've learned it by now. 75 at 5,000 RPM, so 75 miles an hour at 5,000 RPM, that's where I was at, and that's where I like to be. And this doesn't allow you to really do that now because you have to go by the ear. And actually on my carbureted bike, I could lower the RPMs at idle and kind of see where they're at, how they bounce and whatnot, see if there's any interesting things happening there. You can't really do that anymore. You don't have the RPM gauge, the tack. And I also hear, I don't have experience because I haven't tried it, but I hear there's not enough space to replace the front sprocket with the bigger one. There's just not enough space around it. So if that may be something you might consider, but to be honest, I haven't felt the need to change that for this one. It's doing just fine, even though they haven't really added another gear. Sometimes you find yourself looking for that 6th gear. You're not gonna find it because it's still a 5-speed motorcycle, which is the next, I guess, level of improvement. Another gear on this would have been awesome, but it does fine. So in that regard, it behaves like the second gen KLR. It's not a deal breaker by any means. The brakes have been improved as well. As you can see, they're fully round now. They're not that flower shaped, and they're a little bigger. In the front, we have a 300 millimeter up from a 280, so 20 millimeters bigger, same 2-piston caliper. And in the rear, it's actually thicker, allows for better heat dissipation. And they look good. They do a decent job. I mean, it's still one of the weaker parts of the motorcycle. The braking is on this motorcycle, but they do the job. You get used to it. It's not like on the Himalayan where you're screaming for dear life. Here, you do feel what the brakes are doing. I mean, it's a budget-oriented adventure touring motorcycle, but the brakes still do a pretty decent job to stop it. Speaking of the levers and the feel, the clutch seems much lighter. I mean, you can operate this with 1 finger, 2 fingers all day without fatigue, and I appreciate that factor as well. It feels very smooth, obviously cable clutch on the KLR650. The ABS itself works decent. The rear brake doesn't activate too early, which was my concern. You can't shut it off. There's no switch. I suppose a switch would have been a nice addition. Of course, increasing the cost a little bit, but a lot of off-road riders like to be able to switch their ABS. But again, you're not riding this thing fast like you would a KTM or something lighter that's more capable on dirt, especially not with luggage like this. You're just trying not to crash and trying to enjoy the scenery and the road itself, the experience. So it's not for that kind of rider. You're not going to be bunny hopping on this thing. The suspension is not there. The ground clearance is not there. So what you want to do is basically take your time, enjoy the scenery. That's what this bike was made for. The vast majority of adventure touring riders who take it for the travel aspects, a bike that'll get you to where you want to go and back with minimal effort in maintaining or making it roadworthy. It comes roadworthy from Kawasaki, and I do appreciate that. For the money, it's hard to beat this deal. You still get the 21 front inch tire, 17 rear, with the same Dunlop K750s. The tires themselves, although budget oriented, they don't do a terrible job, to be honest. On the wet, they're not going to be very great, to be honest, but in muddy conditions, we had a lot of rain actually over the last few days in San Diego County, Southern California in general, and some of the roads were really not very good at all. But you see when you leave the muddy field what the footprint is, and it looks very nice. It doesn't tend to bunch up in the tire itself. The tire remains its integrity, and when you leave, you can actually see how clear of a line that is and how the tire would be able to provide some lateral support in that regard as well. So the tire itself, not terrible. I would change them definitely, but I would change them after the fact that they're gone. They don't last very long anyways, so just play those out and then you can change them to something more to your liking. But overall, not bad for a starter package. The rear luggage carrier has also been upgraded or updated. Now it's a larger, one solid piece. There are no handles or places to really hook anything to unless you're hooking it from underneath. I like the previous version. I like the fact that the handles were there because you could tie rock straps to it. They could be useful as handles as well. So I'm not sure why they were gotten rid of. But the benefit of this version for the Gen 3 is that you get a locking tool kit placement, basically. So the little hole where you can put your OEM toolkit is now lockable. And that's great. When I was traveling in Spain, I had my toolkit stolen because it was easily removable. So that's kind of nice. I like the fact that they addressed that little issue as well. One really interesting small improvement, but that did do a lot to remove some of the frustrations from Kawasaki KLR owners in the past, is that the battery now is accessible, removable from the side, because the clamps are on the side. You don't have any plastic pieces that have to be fit. You have to remember to put the positive and then fit the plastic and then the negative, put the seat. None of that. All that's gone. You remove the panel and you can access the battery. It's a slightly lighter, a little more efficient battery now. It's a closed cell battery, maintenance free, so there's no need to add acid to it anymore. And I like that a lot. If you're a Kawasaki KLR owner, you know how frustrating it is to remove the panels because you lose the little metal gussets, and the rubber mounts underneath the seat would wear off, and just to access the battery was a nightmare. And then you have the little battery post Phillips screw heads that get lost from their nuts, and then you always have to carry extra. It's it wasn't very fun at all. So they've done away with that, which does a lot to make this a better bike to own. You still have little plastic grommets or washers in the plastic pieces around the bike, but you know, you just have to make sure you keep them. They don't get lost when you remove the plastics. I don't like these plastic grommets here, these little quick removable plastic bolts. I don't know what they're called, because they tend to break, you know, the second time you take them off. I wish those were just basically screws. That would have been better for sure, in my opinion. One unfortunate change has been the shortening of the kickstand. Not sure why they did that. It wasn't a problem before. The kickstand has been shortened by 3 centimeters, 30 millimeters, quite a lot, supposedly to make it easier to get on and off when it's parked, but that all depends on the road conditions, you know, the camber of the road itself, the surface of the road. I don't like the fact that it leans over more. If it digs in a little bit with, you know, any luggage up top, it becomes potentially a problem, wants to tip over. Not a fan of that. That wasn't an issue that needed to be addressed, in my opinion. Not sure why they did that. Demonstrating how to get on and off the KLR. 5'8", 172 centimeters. The suspension in the rear is on number 5. So with all this weight, so basically I pull my pants up to have free range of motion, get my right foot up, put it on the seat, and then do a little hop so I can get that leg over. Now I'm going to use the momentum with my whole body as I depress the front brake so I don't roll down the hill, to get the bike centered, because it is heavy. And as you can see, I am not flat-footed. I'm on my tippy toes on my left foot. This side is a little bit descending, so it's not exact, but yeah, I'm definitely not on my flat feet, even with the boots. The way you get off, put it on the center, not the center stand, put it on the kickstand in gear if you're on a little hill, so it doesn't roll on you. Have faith that, you know, the ground is hard enough to hold the bike. Put both legs on the center stand. You're gonna do this much faster. You're gonna do this in a smooth motion. Put both feet on the foot pegs. The left one is the star of the show. The left one and the left hand with your right hand on the pack is going to help you literally jump off the bike. So you're using that to just suspend yourself in the air for a split second so you can jump off the bike. So here it is, fast motion. Pull my pants up, there, hop, momentum, brake, I'm off. I'm still not flat-footed. I want to get off, side stand, feet, there it is, just like that. Love it. It's doable, it's not intimidating. Makes you be a little more agile, which is good. Let's talk about the luggage. So it's a little small for one, 21 liters, lockable, removable, hard luggage. You can see I laid this one down. I'm super disappointed at how marked it looks, considering I wasn't moving. I literally just lost footing after the heavy rainstorms, made everything very slippery, muddy, and unsure. And I was on a little hill, lost footing. I'm 5'8", so I'm not flat-footed on this bike at all. And it wasn't moving at all. I literally gently laid it down. Of course, it was all part of a very well-planned and pre-coordinated professional manner of testing the motorcycle luggage. Of course, I don't lay my motorcycles down, especially not ones given to me by the company. So don't try this at home. Professional on a closed course here. I laid it down and it just looks like hell. The good thing is that this piece is sold by Kawasaki in pairs for $100. So for $100, you can just replace this piece. There's 2 Phillips screw heads right there, and you can just take that out. So that's kind of nice. I still somehow managed to screw it up. Plus, it's getting a lot of marks from just being used, and the branch is hitting it. So I don't know. For the money, I gotta say, it's too small. It is nice. It shares the same fancy key. That's a plus. But if you see the shape of it, it's tapered on virtually every angle. Here, here it's tapered. So you don't get a lot of volume, especially the bottom part. The cap part is very large, but it's also tapered, you know, and unfortunately there is no organizational pocket or anything. So if you want to put something here, you really can't because it's falling out all the time. If there was some kind of retaining string, something like this, like a net or something, you can put your winter gear, you can put your extra shirts, so you're taking layers on and off as needed. I have my little windbreaker here. Your rain suit can go there because there's some clouds over there. It's good to be able to access that right away, and it's soft enough to mold to whatever's in here. I've been able to fill quite a lot in here. I have some nuts for just the general touring, but as you can see, this is mostly water and filming equipment. Here I have the drone that I was searching for a little bit ago. When I looked at it last time, it was in this general direction, and I can't imagine it's too far. I mean, these trees are not too thick, so I'm gonna need both hands here. Definitely always GPS locator in your pocket, you know, and I always carry this little dog tag. My name, my blood type, my allergies, and emergency contact info. God forbid if you're found somewhere over here, you know, somebody finds you, at least they have. Oh shit, I'll be damned. There she is. Wow, that is an awesome surprise. I love that. Here I have my audio equipment, and here I have my multiple GoPros. Not a whole hell of a lot of things that I can fit in here. This is my coffee maker, my little mini espresso machine. Love that. I'm going to use it right now. My throat's kind of hurting. And I have some snacks and water, just because we are going to be going to the desert, and I don't want to be guessing myself. You always have more water than you need, because the desert is no joke. So that's basically it on that side, and I'm not really sure why they didn't make it so that you could use it ambidextrously on both sides. Since they look alike, it shouldn't have been too hard to make the bracket so that you could use this on the other side as well, because you can see it's fairly symmetrical. The only difference is how you open it, to which side you open it. So obviously no liner, because if they added a liner, there'd be nothing left of the thing. But so there it is on that side. And another thing I noticed, it does have quite a lot of space here. If you want to put a bottle of water, like a 2 liter or 1.5 liters, to get heated, you know, in the summer by the exhaust and whatnot, it's not going to be a lot, but it'll be a little bit better than putting it on the other side, obviously, for your shower. That's how I used to shower when I was touring alone on my 2nd gen KLR. So if you want to take it off, it's quite light. That's the other benefit. You just, you put it on the unlock position, lock, unlock, and to open it, you pull this, but to take it off, you push this, and it comes off. And let me see if I can do this with one arm. It's a little hard. There it is. They give you a little handle here to carry it, so that's kind of nice. See what I mean? That could have easily been made so it can fit the other side. All you need is that little tooth and you're set. So it is alone, it's very, very light. And I do love this. I love this design. It's so kind of covert. You don't even realize that that's a rack right there. So that's pretty neat. And on their website, I was very surprised to find out it's listed at $20 per set. So pretty awesome. You don't have to spend another $100, $150 for a carrier set, you know, for the KLR. So that's pretty neat. It looks great, as always, you know. But it's very small, and it looks small. It looks like some kind of bikini thing going on here. It could definitely have been bigger. It doesn't get in the way of feet or anything, and it's not dangerous for your feet if you're, you know, with bigger luggage. Sometimes you put your foot down and it gets caught in the heel. You could break your leg that way, or your foot. So this has no issue even if it was twice the size. So my regular touring luggage is by Moose Engineering, and that is an expedition case, 47 liters. more than twice this, so per side, you know. So that's a huge, I mean, it looks big, but it doesn't look that much bigger, you know, when you look at it physically, but it does look like a big case, and that actually looks kind of badass, if I should say. Those are exactly the words I want to use, because it does look very cool. And another thing, it provides you a flat surface to work on, something to sit on. It's kind of like a desk space, and an organizing pocket. It's very thin metal. It's not like the Tusk luggage that is really awesome, just super strong. Not the best looking, but very strong and very affordable. On this side, and you can see there's a ton of space that's not being utilized. You know, they could have definitely, if they haven't made this side, they made it side specific, but they did not use any of this space, which means you could potentially drill holes, put a little tube of fuel there or something to that effect, or a toolkit, something that's maybe heavier. So always after riding and at the campground like we are tonight. So me and my friend Stella, are we gonna enjoy tonight? Hell yeah. Here, this one is already taken up by all my tools, extras, etc. Here I have my rain suits, top and bottom, easy to access when needed. Here I have 21 front tube. You basically just need the front in an emergency. The front can be shoved in the rear. I have some spare levers if need be. I have a radio. I actually have two of these, and if I'm somewhere that's kind of tricky and I have enough battery, I'll always turn it on and let it scan, see if anybody else might need some assistance in the meantime. My toiletries bag, very small. I have a very light bicycle lock. This is, you know, not very strong, but if I leave it somewhere where I need to not be able to see it for a while, at least I have that little peace of mind. I have a foot peg or a shifter there, lever, and then I have a tow line. This is pretty important to have, to be honest, and it's also a line that you can use for other things, but it's basically rock climbing grade runners, they call this, and you can cut this in pieces in however long you need. From REI, for example, that's about 25 feet, and I used it on the White Rim Road in Moab to help my partner, Rudy, who crashed his GS 1200 and made it immobile, to get him off the hill and rescued. Gloves, always easy to handle when you're dealing you don't want to get your gloves dirty. I have my Bear Grylls all-in-one single prong survival knife. It's got the fire starter. It's got a sharpener on the other edge. You can beat it, you can hit it, you can hammer it, and it's got a whistle, and yeah, there's a sharpener right there. So pretty neat little piece of equipment, and a little survival guide booklet. And then I have the snap jack to be able to remove the front tire and the rear tire, to lube the chain, etc. I have some reusable zip ties, always good to have, and of course a roll of duct tape. I'll show you that. I have tire pump, 12 volt. I have a chain breaker, chain toolkit. I have a portable jump starter slash what is that? Charging unit. You can see what that looks like, and that charges and jump starts that battery. It has an emergency light as well. Then I have 4 tire irons, including these guys, the Bead Pro. These break the bead. They're awesome. And then I have 2 smaller ones that are kind of like the assistants, but they come on the other end with the necessary wrenches, 22 and 24 mil. And then I have my toolkit. This is just an all-inclusive toolkit, fairly heavy at the bottom of the whole thing. So as you can see, this side is not getting opened up very often, hopefully. And of course, I would also keep, you know, chain lube there, but I'm not going too far that I would not be able to purchase it if needed. So every 400 or so miles, be sure to lube your chain. So there it is about the luggage. Yeah, I would not invest in the luggage, absolutely. It's good little luggage for everyday You know, if you're adamant about having OEM luggage on the Kawasaki, it looks good, it's light, you can lock it, you can remove it, but it's not very usable because there's not a lot of space. Especially for long touring adventures, it's just not going to cut it. Whatever you can't fit in there, you have to fit on top, and then you're off balance, and it's just more difficult to control the bike. So I would say maybe pass on the luggage and invest in the number of new products that are going to be coming to market from Rocky Mountain, from SW Motec, from, who knows, maybe Touratech. I don't know if they're going to get into the KLR business, but there's just going to be so much on the market that's going to improve on the carrying capacity of the KLR. And again, luggage is not just for carrying. It has multiple, or should have multiple uses. It should have, workspace uses. It should have maybe a way to prop the bike, let it lean on the luggage when you need to work on it. Wider luggage makes it so much easier to pick up the bike. You're not hitting the side if you drop it, you know. So numerous benefits. But please take a look at my video and review of my previous second-gen KLR and installing that luggage on the Tusk removable luggage carriers. So the Moose Engineering Expedition case is 47 liters, married to a Tusk luggage carriers that are removable. So pretty neat design and super functional if you're not dropping your bike a whole hell of a lot. So, okay, it's getting dark. Let me get going on this coffee and camp thing. I do like the black paint of the motor, the swing arm, the forks. It just keeps it a little cleaner, a little more modern looking as well. A little, I guess, stealthier in that regard. If you're camping, a lot of times you'll sleep better when you know that you're not, you haven't alerted anybody of where you are for the night. You'll definitely sleep better knowing that you're basically hidden from view. So what I actually did is I removed the reflectors on my second gen when I was touring, because a lot of times you're not going to have an option. You're going to have to be on private property even when you didn't want to, because a storm is chasing you and you just don't have another option. You don't want to be seen. You don't want anybody approaching you in the middle of the night. It's not a nice feeling, especially in Europe, where if in the United States you are more used to carrying a weapon around, for self-protection, if you have a CCW or something, a concealed carry permit, it's trippy to move somewhere else where you don't have that ability all of a sudden, even though you were used to camping with it, sleeping with it. In Europe, you don't have that ability. You can't tour. In Latin America, you can't tour with a firearm. So the best thing is not to be seen. You'll sleep so much better. And this bike allows for that kind of stealthiness, you know? Okay, in the beginning of the video, I told you we're going to talk about something that you're only going to hear in this review. For some reason, nobody seems to think it's important. In other reviews, I think it's crucial for you if you're considering taking this bike on any international adventure touring. And that is the paint scheme. The adventure model comes with only this paint scheme, which is camo style, American flag, resembles some kind of a military style vehicle. That's a big deal and a big consideration. Think about it. If you're touring abroad in places where maybe the military is not so respected or welcome, for example, when I lived in Rio, the military would never, or the military police would never go into the neighborhoods that I lived in the favelas of Rio. If they did, it was with tanks and military vehicles. A lot of the police use motorcycles that look like military vehicles itself. So this attracts perhaps some attention that you don't want to be attracting when you're adventure touring abroad. You can find yourself lost in some situations in neighborhoods where this is not going to be great. It's not going to be beneficial on your end. I'm surprised that Kawasaki allows only for this adventure version to have this color, but I suppose I don't have any experience, but I assume that the fairings are interchangeable. I would not get the KLR in this fairing, even though it's good looking. I just think if you want it for international travel, even south, Baja California, you'll pass some police checkpoints. You know that Baja California is an infamous narco trafficking route, and some of the checkpoints you'll depend on, what foot that guy woke up on, that border patrol agent. Is he in a good mood? Did he drink that morning? That kind of thing. You'll be crossing borders that don't get a lot of action, and you might be the talk of the town. in that particular border. You're not going to be always in the main borders where you can call for a supervisor or something. You're going to be dependent on that border agent and what his mood is and what his position is to, let's say in this case, the United States. I think these lines really are reminiscent of the US flag. Respect the flag. I love this place. This is my home. But when you're adventure touring, I don't know if you want to be that flashy, is what I'm trying to say. And even if it didn't resemble the US flag, it's still camouflage. It could still pass as a military vehicle in that regard in a lot of spaces around the world, Latin America in particular. You don't want that kind of attention. I don't want it. This is just something you're going to have to be comfortable with, but it's definitely something to think about. So there it is. A motorcycle truly in a class of its own. I don't think there's anything on the market right now that can compete with this bike with all the benefits it provides for the EFI, ABS, a decent looking package that's also very capable, and it's got that legendary Kawasaki reliability and following, to be honest. Like I said, you're going to be able to get anything you want for this motorcycle. You know, parts are going to be easy to find wherever in the world you are. So I predict we're going to see a lot of these doing some world trips and world tours in the very near future. Congrats to Kawasaki for putting together a package that's more usable, better looking, more modern, safer, and more functional, more reliable than what it was before. Even so, the previous generation KLRs have such a great reliability pedigree. There's my opinion on the bike. Would I buy this? If this was my only motorcycle in the garage, absolutely. Great tour for around town as well. The luggage itself, if you're into the OEM luggage, is narrow. You can cut traffic in California, lane splitting, which is legal. I made a two-part video on that if you're interested. Very, very beneficial. So cuts traffic very well and is very useful for the highway. You don't have any issues going 75 miles an hour, passing vehicles. It gets around 40 or so miles a gallon. I hit 200 mile mark right when my last bar lit up. From then on, I filled gas and it was 4 gallons. So supposedly there was another 2 gallons to go. And if you're getting 40 miles a gallon, that means that I would have potentially been able to travel 280 miles, let's say, till breathing fumes. So yes, it has the big capacity and the big range to do any kind of adventure touring, but for the city, for everyday use, it's also very, very good motorcycle in that regard. The gas mileage isn't as efficient as I would have liked. For example, the GS line of 650 thumpers gets upwards of 50 miles a gallon, and all of that adds up. You know, here we are getting gas that's upwards of 5 miles a gallon. Some places where you go in the desert or in the more remote areas, I've seen it go up to 7 something. Death Valley, 7 something a gallon. It's very expensive. So the better gas mileage means you can be on the road longer. So it would have been beneficial to see a little more efficiency, considering it is EFI, cleaner burning engine. But for now, this is what we get, and I'm happy with it. So would I buy it? Again, yes. If it's my only motorcycle, yes. But I have 10 motorcycles in the garage. I made a video about the 10, second gen included. You're welcome to see that if you're interested. Motorcycles from all different classes, and each one does a specific job. And in that job, they do it better than the KLR. No surprises there. The KLR is a good around bike, all around motorcycle that can do anything, everything you need it to do, but nothing particularly well in that regard, or nothing astoundingly well, let's say. But it does everything you want it to do. I love how it makes me feel. It calms me down because I ride it slower. Although in the canyons, you could have some fun with this thing, but it also prevents you from getting into trouble legally, ticket-wise, and also just kind of taking corners a little too quick. If you got a little bit of discipline, this bike is not really that powerful to get you in that kind of trouble. There it is. Thank you for watching. I hope this review has been helpful in helping you make a decision about the new KLR. If you're considering this bike, which I assume that's why you're here, it's a wonderful motorcycle, much improved KLR over the second gen, which of course I love. If you want something more dirt oriented, go to the DR, go to the XR. The KLR is too heavy for that. It's too top heavy for that. If you're looking for a motorcycle for just general adventure touring, commuting, one motorcycle to have in your garage that you know is going to last and keep a smile on your face, you want to take slower roads, you want to enjoy the scenery, this is it. This is it. For that money, you can't buy anything on the market right now that's going to be better than this. Thank you for watching. I hope this review has been informative and helpful in helping you make a better decision about your next ADV touring machine. Like I say, I feel every motorcycle is a tool to write your story. So maybe this is the right one for you. I hope this review has been informative in that regard. If it has, please bless the YouTube algorithms and this organic and independent channel, and put a thumbs up, subscribe if you find this information useful. And this is my style, this is how I do all the reviews. So support the independent channels that provide this information to our community. Please leave your comments. Let me know what you think. Let me know what I missed, and let me know what is the thing you love most about the KLR, what is the thing you love least about the KLR, and why you still choose to keep it like I do, despite all its many faults and flaws. Thank you for watching. Stay safe, and till next time, Nick, I'm out.